Welcome to the Digital Business Evolution Podcast, a place that you can now call home. I know you're creating long-lasting impact in this world, and you absolutely deserve the time, location, career, and financial freedom that you desire. I'm here to guide you with proven strategies, tools, and mindset hacks that I've taught to thousands of business owners. You'll also be hearing from exceptional guests sharing stories of their own personal and business evolution. My name is Jessica DeRose, and I'm here to teach you what I'm learning. We are all inherently worthy, regardless of the number of degrees, awards, and accolades that we've collected along the way. Grab a notebook, a coffee, and enjoy the show. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Digital Business Evolution, but the special type of podcast when Mike's here.
Hey, babe.
All right, so today we're talking about one of the most commonly asked questions we get. We definitely got this question a lot during RV life, and that is, how the heck do you two work together?
Yeah, we still get it. I think it's definitely the question we get the most. And even when you put it up on Instagram and stuff, you get, questions, and that's what we want to hear. So
yeah,
here it is.
How we work together, how we don't kill each other. Is it really hard? I could never do it. So we're going to unpack all of it with 5 key things, 5 key things that we've thought of when we sat down to figure out how do we do it.
Yeah, and we are not BSing you. We
are also not professionals.
No. Well, no, we are professionals, and we're not BSing you. We're just going to tell it like it is in terms of how we make it work, because sometimes things look like something else from the outside, and we want to give you a look under the hood.
Yes. But as always, a disclaimer, this is just what works for us.
Yes.
And this has been through trial and error over the past couple of years and through lots of personal growth and development by ourselves, and then lots of personal growth and development together as a couple, which is something that we've committed to, 10 years ago. Once we got together, we committed to it. So, ready?
Of course, babe.
All right.
Of course. That's how we work together. I have to be ready if you're ready. That's it. Episode's over.
Episode's over. There it is. The 5 things. Number 1 is boundaries. And so I think boundaries can encapsulate a couple different things. It's an understanding of our roles inside the company, and then understanding our roles outside of the company, and knowing that there is a container for both, and honoring that container, which bleeds into some of the other key indicators, key points that we also wrote down. But just honoring the boundaries for one another. If, one of us is, I don't want to say, there's no crossing a line, but energetically feels like stepping on toes.
I can take it without stepping on your toes, because
go for it.
Well, because I was the one that I think had to do the most growth with this part of it. As you may or may not know, hopefully you already know because you've listened to our other episodes, but I worked at a bank. Jess was working from home already. I would come home after work and I would just walk in to her office and start talking to her. All right.
I didn't like it.
Now, she was in her masculine. She was pumping out work. Long story short, we communicated. Yeah. She said, hey, look, I get it. I'm so excited that you're that excited to, come home and want to talk to me and things like that. But I'm in the zone and I want to talk to you, but I'm in the zone and I'm flowing and I'm getting work done. Right. So that is an example of boundaries and communication, which we'll get into. But we also had to do that with the RV life, because in the RV life, there was no office.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think we were able to use the literal boundary of a threshold, a door in my office.
Oh, totally.
Where it was sort of a clear
the office
indicator.
Had a door.
Right. So it was like, it's not if I'm in my office, I can be a jerk. It's if I'm in my office, I'm probably in the masculine energy, and I'm probably in the zone and probably in the flow. And so if you do, upon entering, want to just say like, hey, babe, is this a good time? I can let you know. And that was something we definitely had to learn just by living together and working from home. And we got better at it over time. There's a great book, The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. And he talks about the alter ego effect of switching from essentially the masculine energy and the feminine energy, where he would give himself a physical reminder. So he lived in New York City when he wrote this book, and he would hang a bracelet by the door of his apartment that his children made for him, one of those beaded bracelets. When he would go to work, he would take it off. So he'd go to work in his suit and tie. When he would come home, it was right by the door. He would put the bracelet on, and it was a reminder for him, a physical reminder. It's sort of time to switch hats, go into dad mode, which might have been more of that feminine energy. So Mike and I used that door, that threshold, as a physical boundary barrier to say, hey, like, this is my office.
Yeah.
And then, so to your point, when we moved into the RV and there was no door, it was another challenge. It was something else to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, similar type of thing where we just had to communicate and you had to just say, hey, look, like now we're working in the same exact space, which ironically, now we are again in our Scottsdale home because we're sharing an office. So, which the RV was great training for that. And it was just a conversation of, hey, if one of us are working, clearly working, it's just, hey, do you have a second? Right? It's not just, I just start talking about nonsense and Jess is in the flow, right? So,
and vice versa. Yeah. But I think it's also funny. One of the things we do, and you can laugh at this, we'll actually raise our hand, like almost we're in school where it's like, hey, I've got something to say over here. Are you cool? Or we'll put like an earphone in an earbud. So I'll be on my computer. I'll have one earbud in. I might not even be listening to anything, but it's sort of a physical marker of like, this isn't a good time to talk to me right now. And I'm in the middle of something. And so over time, we've sort of just intuitively created these own little signs for each other, and we're able to read each other's energy as well.
And I think some of you are probably like, oh my God, that sounds so robotic and this and that. And even the story you told about the guy with the bracelet, but hear me out here. It helps create the habit and it helps create the understanding from a place where you don't get into an argument over it. It's just like, and again, it's about how you said it to me, but you were just like, hey, I love that you're so excited to come in and talk to me after work. Right. But I'm doing work. I'm still working.
Sure.
Just because I'm at home working, I'm still at the office, right? So even though the things might seem robotic, they can help create consistency and create flow for the relationship. And I love the hand raise example because it sounds weird, but it's actually fun. We do it when we're on coaching calls together. We do it when we're not on calls together. And the headphones thing is such a great example. I love that as well because when you have your headphones on, I'm like, she might be listening to clients' voice memos or listening to music and working and pumping out emails or doing something.
Yeah.
Or she might not be. And it might just be like, hey, she's doing her thing.
Yeah.
Right. So,
all right. So number one is boundaries. Love it. And I love that you said habits too, because it just made me think of like, we don't poo-poo when people put their sneakers out to go to the gym the next day, the night before. Right. So like, why poo-poo the bracelet? So number one is boundaries. Number two is communication. By the way, these are not in any order. Number two is communication. And I think this is something that it goes without saying, but it's something we've certainly been working on a lot, working together. But even before that, just in our marriage in general, communication was something that we were always committed to doing. So,
and everyone can say they're committed to it.
Sure.
Right. And I think we did this for a portion of our, relationship where we did. And it wasn't until we really got deep. And I remember something that actually really triggered me, and I'll share it just so, people can understand. You said, I don't feel safe explaining this to you. And man, that was like initially a dagger, right? But that was something where I had to step back. And once I, got out of that emotional response, I was just like, all right, wait a minute, hold on. Why does she feel that way? Right? And what am I doing to make her feel that way? So bedrock of the communication, foundation of the communication is
safety first.
Yeah. Safety first. And it wasn't something where I was like, freaking out if she talked about something or like, throwing the dog. I just looked at the dog. He's next to me.
We didn't have the dog.
Right. But Jess was expressing something, and even vice versa. It's that safety.
Yeah.
Right. There has to be, I have to feel safe to be able to express things as well. So that's the bedrock of the communication, but take it away, babe, with communication.
Yeah. I think it's just once you have that foundation laid, which by the way, how do you lay a foundation? Hard work, difficult conversations. Sometimes it's discomfort.
Difficult conversations. That's the name of the game.
Yeah. It's not always fun, but laying that down and also coming back to make sure there are no cracks. It's not something that like we had this discussion 8 years ago and we've never talked about it again. It's constantly evolving as we are evolving and our needs are evolving and the way that we want to express to one another and communicate and speak and hear and listen and be heard. But I think one of the things that we do beautifully now, and it does take work, is, are you open? We don't have kids. We have a dog. And so generally our conversations are the business or the dog. And so there are times where it's like, hey, are you cool talking about the business right now? Or I'm kind of sensing energy that maybe you don't want to talk about the business right now, or it's not a good time. We're out doing a walk or a date night. So we have to just communicate with one another and honor if that person is saying like, hey, I'm tapped out, I don't really want to talk about it right now. And then not pressing and digging deeper. Okay, but why? Why do you want to unpack that?
Totally.
Why don't you want to talk about that?
It's two ways too, because there's been times where we both have done this. I actually did it yesterday too, and I'll give you an example. There's been times where I can tell Jess doesn't want to, but she just didn't say it.
Right.
So it's on her to communicate to me, hey, let's not talk about the business right now. Let's do whatever we're doing, right? Or talk about this, something else. Now, last night, you might not even know this yet. She's smiling. Jess was talking about the business, asking me questions. I was done with the day. Like, we were sitting on the couch. I did not want to talk about the business, and I didn't communicate that. And instead, I was uninterested. I was kind of had this like lackadaisical face on. I was looking at my computer. I was ignoring her. So that's on me to communicate that to her, because if I don't, she's just kind of like, why is Mike being an a-hole? You know, he said this was important to him. Okay. So it does go both ways.
Absolutely.
And both people have to communicate. So that's on me to be like, hey, let's talk about it later.
Yeah,
or let's talk about it
for tomorrow.
Let's go for a walk, and then after the walk, talk about it. Right.
And the other side of it is for the other person to be okay with that.
To receive
that. Like,
or if, hey, maybe it's time pressing for you to be like, hey, you know what? No, I need to get this email out. So I really would appreciate your, but if she led with that, then I would have been like, all right. Instead, she didn't lead with that. But also what I didn't do was tell her, hey, can we talk about this at another time?
Yeah.
So instead, we just kind of like bumped through the whole thing. But anyway.
Now I'm wondering what it was.
Oh, it was the email you wanted to write. Hey, I need a title. And then I came up with the title anyway, but it's fine. All right.
Yeah. So communication is huge. Being open to feedback, open to receiving. And something that we teach in all of our coaching is when you are asking for help, when you're asking for feedback and someone gives you feedback, even if you've received it before, tried the thing before, already gone down that path, and maybe it didn't work or you didn't like it, you don't shoot the person
I already
down.
heard that.
Yeah.
No, I've tried that already. But
because now what you're doing, going back to safety, is you're creating an unsafe space. Mike, or whomever it might be, me, is not going to want to share openly with each other anymore because you've shot me down and you've just neglected a gift that someone was willing to give you. So for our communication, it's just being open to feedback. It's understanding that, you know, we might need space. It's understanding that it's our responsibility both to say, hey, I'm tapped out, but also, are you good? Check in with each other. So honoring all of that in communication.
All right. The next one is aligned bigger vision. This one, I feel like this one can cause some serious rifts in people.
You're going to want to take notes.
Well, look, I think it can. And I think the sooner people identify this in their relationship, whether you're just meeting somebody or growing together, you're married, whatever the case may be, it's important to have an aligned bigger vision. Now, if it's not the same, that is okay.
Yes.
But that's something that has to be discussed as well, right? It has to be like, hey, I'm good with that. Like, I love that for you. How can we still incorporate my role in this? How can we still maintain a partnership in this aligned bigger vision? Now, for us, we do have a very much aligned bigger vision.
We do.
And there's a lot of reasons for that. We're not going to go too far into it, but one of the things that I encourage people to do, couples especially, is, and I understand some of you are going to roll your eyes and say you don't believe in this stuff, but I would take as many personality tests as possible, right? Jess and I have a very similar personality. Now, for those of you that know us, you might be surprised by that, but we have a very similar personality. Every test we've taken, it's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Right? Now, why is that significant? That doesn't mean that if you don't have a close personality with the person that you're with, that you're doomed. No. What it means is it empowers you to understand how the other person thinks, and to understand how the other person operates. So when we started to understand that, we were like, oh, that's why that's bothering him. Or that's how I need to communicate that. And I'm sure you could kind of expand on it a little more as far as, you know, aligned vision and how the personalities play a role. So, you know, I'll give it to you.
No, I love that you brought that up. I think best example, because this is a very much entrepreneurial leadership business podcast. So my brain often goes to aligned bigger vision. What's the goal of the business and the company? But let's also just swing back to traditional relationships, whether it's man and woman, woman and woman, man and man, doesn't really matter. A very common conversation for people to have when they start dating is, do you want to get married?
Do you want kids?
Do you want kids? That's an aligned bigger vision. So at the very beginning of a new birthing relationship, it's kind of, okay, cool. We're both on board. We do want kids one day. Let's continue to foster this relationship. And a lot of times that changes over years, and people then decide, are you okay with it or are you not? Right? Are we going to split the relationship up? Or are we going to stay together? So it's not just an aligned bigger vision of like your mission and your vision and the company and the financials, but it's other things in your life as well. And like you said, we often do kind of land on the same page. And if we don't, then we're able to support one another, and we can at least have the conversation around, why is that important to you? What does that mean for you? What will that look like for us?
And another thing that's really relatable to people that aren't working together or in the entrepreneurial community is, I think back to my banking days. You were in alignment with me, putting everything possible into my job because you knew what my vision was, and you supported it. You were like, look, there was some days where I came home at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whether it was I'm at the office or I'm going to a happy hour because it's important for me to network. Sure. And you understood that, you respected that. That stuff is so important too. Because if one person's like, hey, I just want I'd rather you be home. But if that means that, hey, that's going to impact the person's ability to maybe move forward faster at their job, that's a conversation that has to happen. Yeah. Right. So,
well, and I think that's the key word right there is conversation. So it's like, how do I get my partner or spouse or business coworker to know what my aligned vision is? You have to communicate it. So it's sitting down and having time to map out crazy, stupid idea time. For us, we do our action boards every year, which are vision boards on steroids that require action. So it's having those conversations of, what do we want individually? What do we desire individually? What do we want as a couple? What do we desire as a couple? And what do we know? What do we not want? What's important to us? What are our individual, couple, and then company core values, right? We sit down and map all that out. So again, it sounds robotic, but it's just the foundation.
Yeah. And meeting your partner where they're at. Yeah. And I think you met me where I was at on a lot of things, and I met you where you were at on a lot of things.
Absolutely.
I wasn't a big reader like you were, right? And now I read a lot, right? And that's just a very small example of meeting the person where they're at and kind of saying like, hey, like you say in the business, come with me, not like shaming the person because maybe they don't have the vision that you have.
Need to read. It's good for you.
Yeah. Or like, why are you spending so much time at the office? Communication. Right.
All right. Number 4 is the shift for us being married, the shift between working together as coworkers and then shifting into husband and wife. And that's very much the conversation around sort of that masculine energy, that feminine energy for both of us, because all humans have both masculine and feminine energy. So when we're in it, when we're in the business, we're both very much in our masculine. We're working together. We've got a team, there's staff, there's communication and hierarchy going on inside the team. And then when we're in our marriage, we both actually shift more into our feminine nurturing, but me specifically, I swing really far back over, or I kind of I desire to shift way back over into more of the play and letting go of so much of the control. So that shift between those two things is interesting in any given workday, because again, we talk about the business a lot. So it's, what are the key things that we've found to work in that shift back and forth?
Identifying when you're in that state.
Yeah.
For me, right? I mean, when you are working, you are like,
game on.
Yeah, you're masculine, right? And when you're doing creative stuff, I'm not feeling the feminine because you're doing it on your own. Mm-hmm. But when you're on coaching calls, when you're, say, hosting the podcast, right? You're in your masculine. You were just like getting it done. So there's times in our business life when, if Jess is in her masculine, it's okay for me to kind of take a step back, allow her to express what it is that she's trying to express. I think more so in our personal life, though, when you're in the masculine on something that I am just so happy to take control of, it's important for me not to just try to be like overbear the masculine and be more masculine than you're being, right? And we're not talking about man and woman here. It's the energy.
Sure.
It's important for me to just be like, hey, babe, if you want to take this, by all means, but I got this.
Yeah.
And just by me saying that and her expressing, yeah, but essentially you're going to F it up in a nice way. And me being like, no, this is what I was thinking. Then she can shift back into the feminine and go do something else. Right. I can handle the back end of buying the house. I can handle the back end of getting us ready for this road trip. I can handle those more masculine things. Right. And you can do the fluffy planning that you want to plan and whatever it is that you want to do involved in that particular thing. But again, it's just like this whole thing could have just been a 5-second episode where we just say, it's all about communication and being vulnerable and letting your guard down and letting the person express themselves.
And it's no different in business. It's the same thing as delegating, right? It's giving up the control so someone else can sort of take the burden or the weight. Because when you say, maybe you're going to do things that are more masculine so I could go do more fluffy. It's also, or it's so that I could just be in the business more, which isn't masculine, right? So the thing that has helped us a lot is walking, which we've alluded to, but a lot of times we go on multiple walks a day. Having the dog now, we go on even more walks a day, but we sort of have this habit of doing something, whether it's a workout or a walk, or usually it's something outside. It's kind of the indicator that the workday is done. We're moving into just being in our marriage and our relationship. And so giving ourselves that time, that physical reminder that we're literally making the shift and the transition from the workday. It doesn't mean we're not going to talk about it anymore, but the workday is over and now I'm going to shift into, marriage mode, wife mode, whatever that looks like, which bleeds into the fifth one, which is being intentional about things like date night, right? So it's making sure that we have intentional time to be husband and wife without the work instead of coworkers.
Yeah. And it sounds so planned, but I mean, to kind of circle back to the walks, we plan those walks and we do them every day.
Every day.
And we've been doing them every day for years, even if it's short, long, whatever it is, right? In the city, pandemic, all of it.
And our best ideas have come from walking.
But I love what I've heard you talk about this before. Sometimes the first like 15, 20 minutes, it doesn't matter how long. It's just, we both just feel it. We might not say a word.
Yeah.
We're just walking.
Yeah.
Even before the dog, we're just walking. And then it kind of just like flushes out all that like work energy. And I'm not saying that in a negative way.
No.
It's just like when when like you're feeling a certain way, you go to the gym, you start jogging or whatever the case may be. And you're just like, man, I'm feeling good right now. Right. So we will kick into this mode.
Like decompress.
Yeah. And then we just start talking and flowing and communication.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, that's why as much as it's super planned, I love the daily walks.
Yep.
I love the fact that we have scheduled meetings, both personal and in the business. And this one is super important. And this is the last one of intentional scheduling. You schedule time away from me. Yep. I schedule time away from you. And we've been doing this for a long time. This isn't something that we're like, it just sounds cool on the podcast. No. What's my thing?
Ski trips.
I go on ski trips every year with my guys.
Yep.
Now, that's not the only thing that I do.
Sure.
But every single year, I go on ski trips with my guy friends.
Yeah.
And that time's important.
It's super important. It's important in the smaller seasonal. So maybe it's like once a week or once a month where we're doing things separate. We have our own friends. You've got, some of your friends, my friends, guys, whatever. Then we do things as a couple. We do things with couples. We also make sure that we're intentional about scheduling things like date night together, scheduling. And it doesn't always have to be some big, elaborate, expensive dinner. It's just, maybe it's a walk. Maybe it's going to see a show. Maybe it's going to the movies, whatever it is. But there's date night. There's intentional vacations. There's being really intentional with who we're spending our time with as well. And just making sure that even things like, because again, going back to working in a small space, work environment together, being intentional with our schedule. So looking at each other's calendars. Okay, Jess is recording a podcast. Maybe Mike's not doing a call right now. Mike's doing a call. Maybe Jess is not. So it's being really mindful of each other's schedules and essentially working around each other's schedules so that there is more flow. But I will tell you something that had come up at the very beginning of us working together, not so much when you were in the bank because you didn't have control over it. I used to get really frustrated. You might remember when maybe my workday would end or I'd be done with calls and then all of a sudden you'd be getting on them. And I wanted to go play or I wanted to go be done with the day. And now you're first sitting down to do calls. And so we've had to work through some of that where it's like, hey, I opened Thursday up. I would love if you open Thursday up too. Or I opened Thursday up because I want to go do X, Y, and Z with you. So can you just be mindful about that as well? And so being, again, communicative with one another about our schedules, apart, together, in the business, outside of the business, has created more flow and autonomy.
So just to kind of wrap this up, because I think the guy blowing leaves is about to enter the Airbnb that we're in. So, but look, real and raw, right? So 5 things. Boundaries. So important to set boundaries. Communication. That probably should have been number 1.
That's the one.
Communication, how to communicate. Here he is. He's coming in.
He's coming.
Aligned bigger vision, right? Try to find some sort of alignment with your bigger vision. There he is. He has entered the room, guys. Number 4 is how did we work together? And again, that's really just like having conversations and then being intentional with scheduling. We hope you found this valuable. And Jess, I'll let you kind of wrap it up.
Yeah, so those are definitely our 5 kind of key points. The leaf blower is here. Hopefully you can still hear me. Ultimately, it's all about trial and error. You know, at the beginning, I said we're not professionals. Mike said we are. We only are as good as what we've tried. We're only speaking from experience. It has definitely taken time. It's a practice of patience, and we are consistently learning, growing, and evolving, both personally and together. So, as always, shout us out, take screenshots. I am Jessica DeRose, Mike.DeRose. Text us with any questions, comments, 973-358-7836. And we hope you enjoyed the show. Cheers to your evolution. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you loved this episode, I invite you to be a part of our ripple effect and share it with a friend. And please, if you feel called, take 30 seconds to leave a 5-star review, and I'll be forever grateful. Until next time, cheers to your evolution.